Welcome to the NAMB Podcast, where we bring you the voices that drive the mortgage industry. Join dynamic hosts Ginger Bell and Matt Shields as they dive into bold conversations with top experts, industry leaders, and change makers from across the country. From insider insights to game-changing trends, this is your front row seat to what's happening right now in the world of home finance.
Well, hi there. Welcome to another episode of the NAMB Podcast. My name is Ginger Bell, and I have my co-host and partner in crime, Matt Shields. Matt, how are you today?
Ginger, I'm doing fantastic. It's great to see you today.
Absolutely. And so for this recording of our podcast, I know you guys are back from our advocacy days in DC, and you guys had some opportunities to spend time together, which is what's great about live events, obviously, that are going on. And so you and Mark had a chance to spend some time together. So I'm going to let you introduce our guest today, who I'm excited to have share a lot of different updates.
Absolutely. We have Mark Boleky here, and he is the Senior Vice President of Wholesale Production at Plaza Home Mortgage. And just for our listeners, me and Mark had some great conversations in DC, and I found out he was a sports reporter and also a stand-up comedian before getting into the business. So Jack of all trades over here. Very interesting background. You know, we were talking, like, how did you, for our listeners real quick, how did you get into sports broadcasting? How did you get into stand-up? You got such a unique background.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. I'm wearing my red, white, and blue. I'm feeling so patriotic after our trip to DC, and we have Memorial Day and the 250th birthday of America coming up. So I'm wearing my red, white, and blue today. This is my first podcast I've ever been on as a guest. So I've been listening to podcasts for 20 years. I feel like I was one of the first people to listen, but I've finally gotten a chance to be on one. So I'm very excited. Hopefully it's not my last. Hopefully I don't screw it up too bad. But so, you know, speaking of 20 years ago, so I got out of college in 2000. I'd been a broadcast journalism major and loved sports. Was into, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I'm proud to have the Steelers hosting the draft this year.
Awesome, man.
I think we looked great last night. The city showed well for the NFL draft.
Yep.
And so we are coming out of college, got into sports broadcasting as a local news sports anchor in Zanesville, Ohio, which Matt knows, in Ohio, small town. There's 210 television markets. That was market 202. I was there 3 months, and I went to Lima, Ohio, to be the sports director of a new Fox station. And that was market 201. So I moved up one market.
Move it up.
I stayed there for about 2 years. I went to Fort Wayne and then Youngstown. And I did all that for about a total of 3 years. Realized I wanted to get married. At a certain point, it's time to actually start making a little bit of money, because I was making about 19 grand a year, and said, okay, I guess I have to grow up at some point. And it was 2005. My friend had gotten into the mortgage business, my college roommate. I was living in Cleveland, Ohio at the time. It had snowed for 7 straight months. He was living in Jacksonville, Florida, with a subprime mortgage company called the Lending Group. And he said, you don't really have to know anything. We'll teach you. Everybody's making it work. Everybody's making some money. So come on down and we'll teach you how to do the job. So did that for 2 years, and was very fortunate to be able to hook up with Plaza shortly after that. I've been in Plaza 19 years now.
Wow.
Amazing background, amazing, diverse background. Love to have you here in the mortgage business with us.
Yep.
So how did the stand-up comedy play in here?
Well, that was just amateur night, getting up on stage before I had kids and had time. I always feel like if you can make a room full of people laugh, you can kind of really do anything. And public speaking in general, I just really try to make it clear to my kids that, if you're comfortable speaking in front of people, you sound smarter than you really are. People are always impressed by the ability to do that, because so many people aren't comfortable doing that. So, being able to get in front of people and try to make them laugh with nothing helping you, it's just you and the microphone, I thought was, a challenge I wanted to get comfortable with. And so did that. I've probably been on stage maybe 40, 50 times total, but I haven't done it in about 5 or 6 years. So, I went, my career went from in 2001, I'm on the field at the Ohio State National Championship right before they went to the national championship game. And then in 2021, I'm announcing my kids' swim meet. So that's my broadcast career has kind of regressed a little bit in 20 years. But, I like to sort of still do some speaking engagements when I can, anytime I can get up in front of people and talk and educate and inform and hopefully entertain a little bit. I try to do that.
Yeah. And that ability to get up and to share and educate, especially in our industry, plays very well because, like you said, anytime you can be at the front of the room, then you gain an audience, people see you as an expert. And so I think having that ability for our, originating officers, the loan officers here that are listening, having that ability is important. And being able to do that is important. And, looking at that, people always think about if they stand in front of the room, and videos is another thing, recording a video, that they're terrified. What's your tip? Because stand-up to me is probably one of the most terrifying things, doing stand-up comedy. So, what for our audience listening, and what's a tip to be able to kind of calm those nerves when you're standing up in front of a crowd, no matter what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think it's knowing your material. Like when I did stand-up, I wanted to memorize the script word for word, because with comedy, timing is very important. The way you say a word, hitting the exact right word, the precision of that was very important to me. Some people can go up there and wing it and play off the crowd, and they're just naturally funny. I wasn't that good. But even no matter what you're talking about, I mean, if you're talking about, basis points or something that is, not quite as exciting, I think being comfortable with the material that if any of us, I mean, we've all spoken in front of people, the most nervous we've probably been is when we're not super confident in what we're talking about. And we're a little nervous about, the message and hitting everything properly. So knowing the material that you're going to talk about is, to me, the number one thing that will make you a little more comfortable doing it.
Absolutely. Because if you're going up in front of talking about mortgages, if you're going up in front of a group of realtors, you better know what you're saying. Now, you can't really wing that too much. You better have your plan, whether it's programs, process, what separates you from everyone else. But it's just funny how both comedy and presenting in the mortgage space, a lot of the same characteristics.
Yeah, well, and any time when you're presenting, if you can ever bring a little bit of humor in, it really lightens everyone up. It makes them engage more. Stories are really good. Another way, if you can ever tell things with stories, just adding a little bit. And let's be honest, when you're talking about something that they expect to be, business or maybe not as exciting, if you make any little joke or any, they're a much more forgiving audience because they'll laugh at almost anything at that point because they're so, they're not expecting it. So being able to, I still remember just, Matt, the speakers, the congressmen that we spoke about, the ones that kind of incorporated a little bit of humor, even if it was dry humor. We all sort of loved that as the audience when we were listening to them in DC just earlier this week. So, you see that the people that speak a lot like they do, they certainly know that.
Yeah. And coming off of DC, and I know, Mark, this was your first trip to DC with NAMB, attending the Advocacy in Action. And you guys had an opportunity the first day for state leadership. There was a state leadership meeting, and I know, Mark, you recently started a new state association in Florida, which is called the League of Mortgage Professionals. And so, for both of you, I know you both sat in that meeting, what was kind of your takeaway from a state perspective? Because the state associations are so important to be able to tie into, to do that networking, to get that education. So what are some of your takeaways from that state leadership meeting?
I'd say that a small group of people really can make a difference. Most of these state organizations, it's a core group. I mean, they might have 50 or 100 members. They might get people, they might get 50 or 100 people that come to an event, but it's generally, 5 to 8 people that kind of do all of the work. But just what a difference they can make in their state, being able to, put on an event, whether it's the advocacy side, right? Deal with different congressional or government leaders, and then be able to organize education and all that sort of thing. So just what a small group of people that can do. And then what I was really inspired by was the second day, the advocacy part, and learning about the lobbying and the informing. And if you think about it, it's a little bit of a larger group, but relative to the entire housing industry, it's a pretty small group of people that are actually going there and doing the advocacy work that NAMB and BAC and these different organizations are doing. Many of them are volunteers, but they are making a huge difference, because these government leaders, they don't know the housing industry, and they don't know what it's like to be out there every day. They, how could they be an expert in everything? They need to be informed about what's going on. And so it really was interesting to say, hey, like, if we didn't have these, 30 or 40 like super dedicated people, and then the rest of us are kind of also following their lead, who knows what would be going on in our housing industry. So it really makes you feel like, hey, when I get a chance and I can get more and more involved, as my kids get a little bit older, I'd like to get even more involved in those sorts of things. You really can make a difference for your entire industry, which is obviously a big one.
Yeah, we're the boots on the ground. We're the boots on the ground. We're seeing the everyday case studies of what's going on, and us taking our time to go out to DC and lobby and share our stories. Like, we're that voice, especially on the state level. In Florida, you're the boots on the ground there, and I think that's what makes NAMB so strong, is every single state being that voice locally. Then together we're this big national voice together.
Yeah, I think it's smart that NAMB is really putting a lot of efforts into building up the states, because everything really starts locally, and being able to feel like you're part of that, because obviously NAMB can't be putting on events in every single city every single month. So you have the states that are putting on those local events, and then we have NAMB backing us nationally, and all of that. And when we put on these state events, people really like coming. It's hard to get people to come. It's like anything else. It's hard to get people to show up. But when they do, they're always happy that they did. They're always very thankful. So the work that goes into it, it makes you feel like you are making a difference.
Yeah, and making a difference is important. And I know, Plaza has been an industry partner with NAMB for many, many years, and we appreciate that. So thank you for that. And I know Plaza is so committed to providing that education and the resources for mortgage brokers. And you recently had a video that you had put out talking about the condo updates. And, I saw that. It's like, this is perfect. This is what we need to get out there. So first and foremost, thank you to you. Thank you to Plaza for the support. But, the changes like that are happening, let's talk about some of the condo changes, because like anytime there's a change, there's always the good and the bad, right? And so understanding what those are is important. So just in kind of a highlight, what are the things that people should be aware of as far as the changes that are happening right now with condos?
Sure. So on March 18th, Fannie and Freddie came out with bulletins and lender letters that made some condo changes that were, some are effective right away, some are effective in August, some are effective in 2027. So some of them were things that made our life a little bit easier. So you had 5 to 10 units now follow the 2 to 4 unit condo projects where there's no review needed. So some parts of the country, there are condo projects 10 units and under. That's a nice advantage there. No investor concentration cap. That can make life a little bit easier for some of those places where before it was 50%. New projects in Florida don't need a PERS review. That's where you have to go to the Fannie Mae and get the full review. You can now just do them as a regular review. That opens up some opportunities with new projects in Florida. On the insurance side, there's some stuff that's pretty complicated, but the ones that kind of were the most impactful, I think, were the actual cash value can now be used for roofs and personal property instead of the replacement cost. So that gives a little bit of flexibility in being able to get the insurance approved. Also, the per unit deductible, now 50,000 is acceptable there. And so those were some of the positive changes. The ones that are the most going to be the most impactful On the other side is August 3rd, applications after August 3rd is the limited review is no longer going to be accepted. And so we know that many of us have been able to have some success with limited review condos, which is 90 LTV in most of the country, 75 LTV in Florida, and being able to just get by with a sort of shorter version of the questionnaire, no budget needed, streamline things and keep things moving. That is now everything's going to be a full review, full budget, full questionnaire with all the million questions being asked. So a lot more scrutiny of all these condos, a lot more potential hiccups could be coming up. Even if they're putting 50% down, you're still going to have to be dealing with that. And then for next year and beginning of 2027, the 2027 budgets will have to have a 15% number for reserves as opposed to the old 10%. So I know NAMB is sort of advocating to at least get a delay on these. So hopefully we'll have some good news coming there because maybe these things are the right move to do long term, but it's very fast to be implementing these in the timeframes that these are. You think about establishing a budget where you're changing 5% of their entire budget potentially. I talked to our condo project manager today, and I said, how much of these condos are over 15%? And he said he thinks a very big majority are they know that 10% number and they're at 10%, 12%. Unless they are trying to catch up or they needed to go way above and they're doing well above 20, 30% in reserve collection, that 15% number will be impactful and will be difficult for some of them to meet, especially with this short of a time to sort of change the way that you're doing your collecting. So those are the changes that we have going on. Whenever there's any change, honestly, condos were already a little challenging, right? I mean, there's just a lot going on compared to a single family house. So I did want to go through I have the very fancy smartphone. So let me show you my office a little bit. So this is our movie posters. So when we had our lounge back when we had people in the office, the only two movie posters that I could think of in our business are The Big Short and Glengarry Glen Ross. Put that coffee down. Well, unfortunately, neither one really makes us look all that great, but but they're great movies. So those are my two movie posters that I have here. But I have the very fancy smart board here with very advanced AI. It's a piece of paper and a marker. All right. So I'm going to talk about 4 steps that I think every loan officer should do whenever they get approached about a condo project. All right. So the first thing you have to do is check the lists because your condo project might be approved. There's like over 16,000 approved condos just on the conventional side. There's thousands and thousands that are FHA and VA approved. But sometimes we get questionnaires in and they didn't even know that it was already approved. So they wasted money, they wasted time, they wasted efforts. So some of the lists like FHA and VA are online. Others like Fannie and Freddie are not available publicly. So you'd have to come to someone like your Plaza rep and we could check with our project approval team and let you know, within an hour or two, if it's on the list or not. Also, it might be on the unavailable list, in which case you're like, well, I better give up on this, or I have something to deal with and maybe try to get it off the list, which is also an option. So check the list. Before you do anything, check the list. And of course, this is all encouraging you to deal with it up front. Do not wait until your loan's approved and then deal with the condo, because absolutely the condo can blow things up, right? There's things that might not meet guidelines. Number 2 would be get the cert and the budget. If you need the budget, which we know you're going to pretty soon, get that cert, get it up front, get it as soon as possible. 3, send it for review. So one of the nice things about our project approval team is you can actually submit that for review before you've even created a loan number, before you've submitted a loan. So you get that condo in for review, you get your answer about if there's anything that's going to be a major problem, and then, okay, I have that peace of mind. So Matt, if I ask you, where on the list of relationship killer would it be to say that you could do something and then not be able to do it the last minute?
Oh, that's a huge killer. Say goodbye to that referral partner. Say goodbye to your credibility. That you got to do that up front, and that's amazing to review it up front.
Right. And so if you wait And I mean, my project leader literally told me today, the amount of times that we see the condo stuff coming in near the end, baffles his mind, because of course it creates a bad experience if there is something that could potentially be a problem or a delay, which does happen with condos sometimes. Yep. So getting it in as early as possible, and especially if you get in before you even submit the loan, before you even have a purchase contract, you could be doing this, because all we care about is knowing which project it is. So that is what I would recommend in trying to get those answers up front. And then number 4, having a backup plan, being able to know, hey, this is not going to work for, conventional. Non-QM, you're going to see continue to grow more and more in the condo space, because they have options, right? They can follow whatever rule they want. They might be able to get an exception on an insurance that isn't Fannie Mae approvable, or something with the reserves, right? They can look at the strength of the file and make decisions on that. So you want to make sure you kind of always know, hey, I've got a pretty good non-QM option, or I at least have an option. Our project approval team will automatically tell you if there's a non-QM option if it doesn't work on the conventional side. So those are kind of like the steps that I would recommend taking: 1, 2, 3, 4. Whenever you get a condo loan, whether it's now, whether it's after August 3rd, I'd say follow those steps. And number 1, deal with it up front.
Yeah.
That's amazing advice for our listeners. I can't stress that enough. I mean, to do the heavy lifting up front to save your reputation later. But the fact that you guys are reviewing that for non-QM at the same time, like, talk about a great resource.
Yeah. And that's working with the right lenders. Yep. Making sure that you have those relationships, who your account executives are, you know the process ahead of time. Mm-hmm. And being able to do that, especially with your referral partners. And I know Florida is a big condo area, maybe not so much for you, Matt. Although definitely where you're at in Columbus, it's growing.
Columbus, it's crazy. So we have a lot of different offices who I'm affiliated with for USA Mortgage here in Ohio. But Columbus, the amount of condos we have now in Columbus is crazy. So I felt like taking a crash course over the last couple of years with all the new projects and making sure the budget, or the insurance, renter concentration, all that. That's been a really big one for me locally, very big one. So just hearing all the stuff you're saying, Mark, it's exactly what someone needs to do to have success in the space.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and having the back education part of it, so knowing what you're getting into is important. We at NAMB have created an entire resource page, Mark, that we have information on the condo changes. We do have our NAMB letter to the FHFA, just the opinion as far as being able to kind of slow it down a little bit. And then we've also created a variety of marketing tools. And so someone can go there if you go to namb.org, and it's under condo-financing, or if you just click it, it's under our advocacy page. And so we've created social media graphics, scripts, marketing material. So all you have to do is to go on there, register. We're going to email you all that information. And honestly, it's all free. You don't even have to be a NAMB member in order to access that. But I want to talk a little bit about why being a member of NAMB is so important, and especially tying it into the state association. So, Mark, as for our audience that are mortgage brokers, how important is it to be involved with the associations?
Well, you get the information. You're on the mailing list, you're on the email list. And then the going to the events. So for example, we just did an event on the UAD 3.6 appraisal updates. And rather than watch a webinar online, we had 2 presidents of AMCs at our events showing you what it's going to look like, telling you what to prepare for, letting you know what your impact is going to be. And then of course we had like 30 minutes of questions. So the being able to be face to face with people is really important. Not to mention just the networking, right? I mean, just the catching up with people that I was at our last luncheon. I was sitting with 2 different mortgage brokers, and they knew each other a little bit. One of them had just moved out of the space, their office. The other one was looking for an office, so they connected, and the one is going to move into the other person's office because of the being able to sit at the same lunch table together while we were at our event. So being able to just be around people and in person, I mean, that's really what got a lot of us started is those face-to-face interactions. And so I just wanted to kind of include that and talk about how Those in-person events are so great, as many as you can get to. But of course, NAMB also has so many online events, which is obviously much more accessible for people to see en masse. But I really like the fact that we can put on, one a month about is what we're averaging, and getting the people coming that we are.
I love it. Well, Mark, thank you so much for the information.
I do have one more idea I wanted to share. Okay.
Okay.
If I can. All right. I'm gonna do an advanced animation to change screens. Okay. Watch. There we go. How about that? All right. Okay. So what I just talked about was like a short-term process, meaning I have a loan in front of me. I want to remind you of the opportunities from a long-term perspective. So number one is be the condo subject matter expert in your area. Say, tell people, obviously do the research that NAMB and we're all providing, right? Learn about it and tell people, hey, I'm an expert at condos. And, being able to when news comes out, you go meet with their realtors, you go inform them of what changes are, what the impact is, because they, of course, probably don't know. So as soon as news comes out, good or bad, be the person that goes out and is the informer. And condos is a great way to do that because many people kind of shy away and they would rather not have to deal with it because they are a little more challenging. Number two, the HOA relationships. And I know what you're thinking, like the only person worse than dealing with HOAs is like contractors, right? But they are really important. And I do feel for them in a sense because they don't always know about what it will take to be financed. They also have to deal with, their unit owners who don't want to pay a lot more in fees. So they have to balance all this. One idea, it's the Community Associations Institute, CAI. Make sure that the HOA is a member of that because they will inform them of changes. They will help them structure their budgets and their bylaws to help it be financeable or changes like that. So CAI is a good institute for HOAs. And then make sure that they know what the status of their project is. Are you approved? Are you unavailable? Your approval's about to expire. I'm telling you, they have so much stuff to deal with, from garbage removal to parking lots and construct. Right? They don't remember exactly all the things about Fannie Mae approval lists and all that sort of thing. And also you can help them get the whole project potentially approved. Because like I said, there's 16,000 plus approved Fannie Mae projects out there. When you get it approved, it's approved for 2 years and there's no more budget needed. There's no more questionnaire needed for 2 years. All you need is insurance. So being able to do that effort once and then go out and tell your realtors, hey, I got this place approved. What about going to all the people that have listings, right? You want to talk about a way to meet some listing agents? Find everyone on, realtor.com or Zillow and find out who the listing agent is and say, hey, I'm going to work on getting that project approved to make your life easier and make that easier to sell. You don't think you're going to have a relationship now that you just added? So there's a great opportunity there. And then last, don't forget to support NAMB advocacy because when these things change, when these announcements come out, they're immediately on it and they give you the information that you need. And then of course, they are sort of fighting the battle for us, hopefully with your help, to be able to make sure that they're not doing things that are going to put our buyers and ourselves in a very difficult position.
Talk about bringing value and creating a niche for yourself in the space. That's an amazing bit of information there.
Yep. And it's, all those resources are available, right? I mean, we will help you know what condos in your area are on the list, what the expiration date is. The FHA and VA lists are obviously available online. And then you can find out who all the listing agents are just by seeing what they have listed. And, any condo project that you've done, you've got a questionnaire from, you can get the HOA contacts. All that information is pretty easy to obtain.
Perfect. I love it. Well, Mark, great information. I tell you what, you delivered for your first podcast.
Knocked it out the park, man. You killed it. Great job.
Totally. We will have you back often.
It was fun.
Next time you'll have to bring a joke, though.
All right. All right.
We'll make a segment for you in our NAMB chat. You can do a bad dad joke.
Yes. My kids will tell me I have plenty of those.
I love it. Well, guys, if you are looking for a really good partner for condos, Plaza is definitely one of our industry partners that I would connect with. And so you can find out more about Plaza. It's easy. It's plazahomemortgage.com. Mark, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And Matt, as always, thank you. Love all your input and your insight. And so for those of you who are listening, make sure and follow and like us. We have a brand new podcast episode every single week. And of course, make your comments down below for Mark and let him know how he did. We'll get you a rating there, Mark, and see how you
Good.
did. Okay, great.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mark. See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the NAMB Podcast, brought to you by the National Association of Mortgage Brokers. For more episodes, resources, and guest interviews, visit nambpodcast.com. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe.